Westbrook was a town where life moved at a leisurely pace, its charm defined by picturesque streets and warm, friendly faces. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic place, an unsettling mystery began to stir. The town's calm was shattered with the sudden and unexplained disappearance of Daniel Gray, a local businessman and philanthropist. Known for his dedication to community projects and his successful real estate ventures, Daniel was a well-respected figure whose absence left the town in a state of palpable anxiety. Emma Carter, an investigative journalist renowned for her knack for digging up hidden truths, arrived in Westbrook to probe the case. Emma had received an anonymous tip hinting that Daniel's disappearance was far more complex than it appeared. With a keen sense of curiosity and a determined spirit, she set out to uncover the layers of secrecy that seemed to cloak the town. Emma's initial interactions with the townspeople revealed a striking hesitance to discuss the case. Although they expressed concern, their reluctance to delve deeper into the details suggested an undercurrent of unease. Emma learned that Daniel had been a vibrant part of Westbrook's social fabric, yet his sudden disappearance was met with a mixture of confusion and an almost collective desire to move past the incident. Sheriff Thomas Reed, the only law enforcement officer in town, was tasked with handling the investigation. Reed was a figure of authority known for his stoic and reserved nature. His interactions with Emma were marked by a stern professionalism that masked an underlying discomfort. While Reed assured Emma that the investigation was in full swing, his responses were clipped and his demeanor evasive. Emma could not shake the feeling that Reed's reluctance to provide details was indicative of a deeper issue. Determined to piece together the puzzle, Emma began her inquiries by speaking with Daniel's colleagues and acquaintances. She discovered that Daniel had been involved in several high-profile projects and had recently become vocal about concerns regarding financial irregularities within his business dealings. This information hinted at potential motives behind his disappearance. Emma's interviews with local residents and business associates painted a picture of a man who was not only influential but also possibly entangled in controversial matters. One name that repeatedly surfaced in Emma's investigation was Richard Blake, a wealthy and somewhat enigmatic figure. Blake, a prominent businessman with interests in several of Daniel's ventures, was known for his reclusive and guarded nature. Despite his influence, he remained an elusive character, rarely seen in public and even less frequently engaged in local matters. The more Emma learned about Blake, the more she realized that his presence in Daniel's life was far from incidental. Emma's growing suspicion was further fueled by her interactions with Sheriff Reed. Although Reed claimed that the investigation was progressing, his unwillingness to address specific questions or delve into the details of Daniel's recent activities suggested that he might be concealing something. The sheriff's behavior only intensified Emma's belief that there was more to the story than met the eye. As Emma delved deeper into the investigation, she began to notice subtle inconsistencies and peculiarities in the accounts provided by those close to Daniel. Small, yet significant discrepancies in their stories hinted at hidden agendas and unresolved conflicts. Emma's perseverance in seeking the truth began to expose a network of secrets and potential deceptions lurking beneath Westbrook's polished exterior. Emma's presence in the town was met with a blend of curiosity and wariness from the residents. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that Daniel's disappearance was not merely an isolated event but a thread in a larger, more intricate tapestry of intrigue and concealment. As Emma continued her quest for answers, it became evident that Westbrook's serene facade was masking a labyrinth of deceit that she was determined to unravel. As Emma Carter's investigation progressed, she began to uncover unsettling patterns suggesting that Daniel Gray's disappearance was part of a larger, more complex scheme. Her focus shifted to Richard Blake, a shadowy figure whose influence in Westbrook was both significant and enigmatic. Blake's reclusive nature and substantial financial clout made him a person of interest, particularly given his recent business dealings with Daniel. Emma's research revealed that Richard Blake was deeply involved in several ventures with Daniel. However, what was more alarming were the irregularities she discovered in the financial records related to their joint projects. Transactions that seemed routine on the surface were marked by inconsistencies and suspicious alterations. Emma's inquiries into Blake's background uncovered a pattern of secretive operations and questionable ethics, hinting at a possible link between Blake and Daniel's sudden disappearance. Despite her growing evidence, Emma faced resistance when trying to probe deeper into Blake's affairs. Blake's business associates and even some town officials seemed reluctant to discuss him. This reluctance only reinforced Emma's belief that Blake's involvement in Daniel's life was more than coincidental. To gain further insight, Emma decided to investigate Blake's financial connections and business practices more thoroughly. Her investigation led her to a series of confidential documents and correspondence between Blake and Daniel. These documents revealed that Daniel had recently uncovered dubious financial transactions and had been preparing to expose them. It became evident that Daniel had been at odds with Blake over these issues, which could have provided a motive for Blake to silence him. Emma's discovery of these documents was a breakthrough, but it also put her in a precarious position, as she knew that revealing this information could make her a target. Emma's efforts to confront Richard Blake directly were met with a cold reception. Blake's demeanor was polite but dismissive, and he deftly avoided addressing any of Emma's probing questions about his dealings with Daniel. The more Emma pressed, the more Blake's responses seemed rehearsed and evasive. His carefully constructed facade of respectability began to crack under the pressure of Emma's scrutiny. Complicating matters further was Sheriff Thomas Reed's growing defensiveness when questioned about his handling of the case. Although Reed had initially presented himself as a diligent officer, his reluctance to delve into Blake's background or confront the mounting evidence suggested a potential conflict of interest. Emma began to suspect that Reed might be either complicit in or intimidated by Blake's operations. His behavior indicated that he might have personal or professional stakes in keeping the investigation under control. As Emma's investigation continued, she encountered a series of obstacles that further fueled her suspicion. Anonymous threats and attempts to dissuade her from pursuing the case indicated that powerful forces were at work to keep the truth hidden. Despite these challenges, Emma remained resolute in her mission to uncover the truth. She continued to gather evidence, determined to expose the hidden connections and corruption that seemed to intertwine with Daniel's disappearance. Her relentless pursuit of the truth led her to a crucial turning point, a clandestine meeting between Richard Blake and a shadowy figure who appeared to be orchestrating their dealings. Emma managed to capture evidence of this meeting, which seemed to confirm her suspicions about a broader conspiracy. The meeting revealed that Blake was not acting alone and that there were multiple layers of deceit involved. Armed with this new evidence, Emma faced the daunting task of piecing together the intricate web of lies that had ensnared Daniel Gray. Her investigation had uncovered a hidden connection between Blake's business operations and Daniel's disappearance, but the full extent of the conspiracy remained obscured. Emma knew that exposing the truth would require confronting powerful individuals and risking her own safety, but she was determined to see the investigation through to its end. As she prepared for the next phase of her investigation, Emma realized that she was venturing into dangerous territory. The more she uncovered, the more evident it became that the forces protecting the conspiracy were formidable. Nonetheless, Emma remained undeterred, driven by her commitment to uncovering the truth and seeking justice for Daniel Gray. Emma Carter's investigation had reached a critical juncture. Armed with evidence of a deep-seated conspiracy involving Richard Blake and Sheriff Thomas Reed, she pressed on with renewed determination. The connection she had uncovered hinted at an elaborate scheme, and her next step was to dive deeper into Blake's clandestine operations. Her journey led her to a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of Westbrook, a place she had tracked through financial records and hidden correspondence. The warehouse, shrouded in secrecy, appeared to be a central hub for Blake's illicit activities. Emma approached the building with caution, knowing that her presence there could be dangerous. She managed to slip inside under the cover of darkness, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The interior of the warehouse was stark and functional, filled with boxes, crates, and a collection of documents that seemed to be related to Blake's secret operations. Emma's search through the warehouse yielded critical evidence. Among the documents, she discovered detailed ledgers and records that outlined a network of illegal activities, including money laundering, bribery, and blackmail. The records indicated that Blake had been involved in orchestrating a scheme to exploit local businesses and manipulate financial markets for personal gain. It was clear that Daniel Gray had stumbled upon these operations and had been planning to expose them, which likely made him a target for elimination. As Emma gathered the evidence, she was startled by the sudden sound of footsteps approaching. Her heart pounded as she quickly hid behind a stack of crates. Through a small gap, she saw several men enter the warehouse, their demeanor suggesting that they were enforcers or hired thugs. They moved with purpose, discussing plans to take care of the problem and cover up loose ends. Emma realized that they were referring to her, and the danger she was in became all too real. The enforcers began to search the warehouse, and Emma knew she had to act quickly. Using her wits and knowledge of the layout, she managed to evade them and slip out through a back exit. Although she had narrowly escaped, she knew that the evidence she had gathered was critical to revealing the full extent of the conspiracy. With her newfound information, Emma decided to take the evidence directly to the authorities, hoping to bring the criminal network to light. However, as Emma prepared to present her findings to the sheriff's office, she encountered an unexpected hurdle. Sheriff Reed, who had been increasingly evasive, dismissed her claims and seemed uninterested in the overwhelming evidence she had collected. His dismissive attitude and lack of action only reinforced Emma's suspicion that he was complicit in the conspiracy. Reed's behavior suggested that he was part of the cover-up, either through direct involvement or by choosing to turn a blind eye. Emma's frustration grew as she realized that traditional channels of justice might be compromised. Determined to see justice served, she reached out to trusted allies and media contacts who could help her disseminate the information. She shared the evidence with a well-known investigative journalist who had a reputation for exposing corruption and organized crime. The journalist agreed to assist, recognizing the gravity of the situation and the potential impact of the revelations. As the media began to report on the findings, public interest in the case surged. The exposure of Richard Blake's criminal activities and the sheriff's role in covering them up created a storm of controversy. The pressure mounted on local authorities to take action, and investigations were launched into Blake's operations and Reed's conduct. The media scrutiny and public outrage forced Richard Blake and Sheriff Reed into the spotlight, making it increasingly difficult for them to evade justice. Blake's criminal empire began to crumble as law enforcement agencies closed in on his operations. Reed, facing mounting evidence of his complicity, was also subjected to intense scrutiny and investigation. Emma's persistence had paid off. The case that had once seemed shrouded in darkness was now illuminated by the harsh light of public and legal scrutiny. The revelations had exposed a network of deceit and corruption that had plagued Westbrook, and the wheels of justice were set in motion. Emma, though exhausted and shaken by the dangers she had faced, knew that her efforts had made a significant impact. With the truth coming to light and the conspirators facing the consequences of their actions, Emma Carter's investigation marked a pivotal moment in Westbrook's history. The town, once enveloped in shadows, began to heal as the truth was laid bare, and justice was pursued with renewed vigor. Emma's role in uncovering the conspiracy had not only brought closure to Daniel Gray's disappearance but had also restored a sense of integrity to the community. With the truth about Richard Blake's criminal activities and Sheriff Thomas Reed's complicity now in the open, the final act of Emma Carter's investigation was approaching. The public outcry and media frenzy had put immense pressure on the authorities to act swiftly. Blake and Reed, cornered and desperate, were determined to silence Emma and cover up their crimes before their empire of deceit could completely crumble. Emma knew that confronting Blake and Reed directly was inevitable. With the weight of her investigation behind her, she prepared for the final showdown. The evidence she had gathered was irrefutable, but she needed to ensure that it reached the right hands and led to meaningful consequences. Emma planned a meeting with Blake, hoping to catch him in a moment of vulnerability and secure a confession that would seal his fate. In a tense confrontation, Emma arranged to meet Richard Blake at a secluded location, a luxurious but isolated estate that had served as one of his hideouts. Blake, aware of the mounting pressure and the exposure of his operations, was increasingly defensive. The meeting was fraught with tension as Blake, despite his calm exterior, revealed cracks in his facade. He was evasive and hostile, trying to downplay his involvement and discredit Emma's findings. Emma, however, was resolute. Armed with incontrovertible evidence and the support of law enforcement, she pressed Blake on the specifics of his illicit activities. The confrontation reached a climax when Blake, realizing that his options were running out, attempted to flee. In the ensuing chaos, Emma was able to call for backup, and the authorities arrived just in time to apprehend Blake. The final confrontation with Sheriff Reed was equally dramatic. Reed, facing mounting evidence of his betrayal and the unraveling of his reputation, was cornered. He had hoped to manipulate the situation and avoid accountability, but Emma's persistence and the public pressure made it impossible for him to escape the consequences. Reed was confronted with the evidence of his complicity and forced to face the reality of his actions. As the dust settled, Blake and Reed were taken into custody. Their downfall was swift and inevitable, as the evidence of their crimes was overwhelming. The legal process moved quickly, with Blake facing charges of fraud, money laundering, and other serious offenses, while Reed was charged with corruption and abuse of power. The town of Westbrook, once shrouded in secrecy, began to see the restoration of justice. Emma's efforts had not only exposed a major criminal conspiracy but had also brought a sense of closure to Daniel Gray's family and the community. The investigation had uncovered a web of deceit that had threatened the town's very fabric, and the repercussions of the revelations were felt throughout Westbrook. With Blake and Reed held accountable for their actions, Emma left Westbrook with a sense of accomplishment. The town, now free from the shadow of corruption, began to heal and rebuild. Emma's role in bringing the truth to light had made a significant impact, and her determination had restored integrity to the community. As Emma moved on to her next assignment, she carried with her the satisfaction of having made a difference. The final confrontation had been the culmination of a journey fraught with danger and challenges, but it had ultimately led to justice and the unmasking of a dark conspiracy. Emma Carter's investigation was a testament to the power of perseverance and the pursuit of truth in the face of formidable obstacles.